All right, welcome back to the News Hour. Before we get to all the business stories with Michael in just a moment, this is a story that businesses here in China should be concerned about. China releasing its first report on sustainable development, coming as it does just 3 weeks before that big conference in Rio Plus 20. What does this mean, and what message is China hoping to send to the world before that conference? We're now joined by Professor Zhang HAIBIN from the School of International Studies at Peking University. Thanks very much, Professor Zhang, for joining us here on the News Hour. I want to put this into some context for our viewers. Try and explain for our viewers why this report is so important as it comes before that Rio Plus 20 conference. Professor Zhang, could you explain the importance of this report that's just been released by the NDRC?
Yeah, I think that's a very important report because China is very much unique in the field of sustainable development. Because China is the most populous country in the world, and the opportunities and the challenges facing China today is unprecedented in the history. So I think that China can benefit from sustainable development, and also the rest of the world also benefit from China's efforts.
Professor Zhang, the 12th five-year plan has allocated a little over $1.5 trillion specifically for these strategic sectors, as it puts it, clean energy, sustainable development, and so on. I'm just trying to understand, if you could explain to our viewers, how China is hoping to move away from its traditional stereotype that it's the factory of the world to a more laboratory of the world, and how much this investment in sustainable development and this emphasis on sustainable development will help in that regard.
I think that's very much closely related to the Rio process. I think that from the 1992, the Rio Summit, Chinese government, attached a greater importance to the sustainable development. That's now in the last 20 years, China made unremitting efforts toward the sustainable development. So I think it's a lot difficult to understand that in the last 20 years, Chinese government invested so much resources, energy, and money in sustainable development. So we can look at look at the 12th five-year plan, and China invested so large amount of money in sustainable development, which clearly indicates and demonstrates to the world that the Chinese government and the people very concerned about and very interested in sustainable development.
And finally, Professor Zhang, I mean, as much as we say that the amount of investment in clean energy, whether it's solar or wind or hydro, has been huge in the last 10 years or so, and there's been a great emphasis on sustainable development, it is also the fact that China is the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases after the United States. The consumption in this country is huge. What are the challenges that China still faces as it moves, like I said, from being the factory of the world to a more sustainable development path?
I think that we have a lot of challenges, frankly speaking. But what we lack the most is the actions. I think that now we don't lack programs. We don't lack ideas. What we lack the most is the translate our ideas and programs into actions. So for me, the implementation is most important issue and the challenge facing China.
Professor Zhang HAIBIN from Peking University, many thanks for joining us with your inputs and perspective on that Sustainable Development Report. And